Hello, listeners, and welcome to Pop Screen, a podcast for interesting teenagers. We are that corner of the Geek Show that likes to look at the good, the bad, and the ridiculous of movies, either starring by or about pop stars. No, the podcast covers a broad range of musical and cinematic genres, from documentaries to science fiction, from country and western to hip-hop. I'm your host, Graham Williamson. I'm a filmmaker and video artist who writes regularly for the Geek Show and also sometimes for Byline Times. And I've been joined this week by...
I'm Mark Conliffe. I'm also a regular writer for The Geek Show. I've wrote a chapter for Scarred for Life Volume 2, and I write for Arrow Film.
So this is quite a first for us, in that this is the first and only film we've done whose title is considered by the FBI to be an indicator of anarchist extremist sympathies.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know when this particular podcast is going to go out, but Eat the Rich is the title. We're in a sort of situation now where any sort of sloganeering that is vaguely left-wing is now prescribed, near enough, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
You can't say death to the IDF because it's anti-Semitic, apparently, which, equating the entire Jewish population to a genocidal army it's anti-Semitic.
If it's done by the other side, is considered quite bad, but fortunately, if it's done to defend Israel, then, sorry, Jews, you've got to get used to it.
You've got to get suck it up.
Yeah, that's basically the message.
Pretty much, isn't it? But yeah, it's strange because, I mean, obviously we're a week after Bob Vylan's performance at Glastonbury. And I heard it and didn't think, he's wishing death on Israeli soldiers. It's
end
death
this institution.
And nobody's, and again, to sort of draw the parallel here, nobody's actually expressing that we should all become cannibals and eat Jeff Bezos.
If only, because he looks quite stringy. I don't think there's much nutritional value in him.
No, there's not much in a Bezos. I mean, the thing is, we say eat the rich, and then you look at some of these rich people, and you wouldn't want to be. You wouldn't want that relationship with any of them, would you?
No, it's far too intimate.
I don't want to eat Elon Musk.
No.
Or Trump or anybody like that.
I already have enough microplastics in my body without eating Elon Musk to add to it.
I don't need a secondary ketamine addiction. But we are talking about Eat the Rich after that political discourse, although this is a political film, it has to be said, as you can guess from the title. Yeah. We are talking about Eat the Rich.
And we're talking about Eat the Rich in part because I am currently going through a project on Letterboxd where I'm rewatching all of the films in the Comic Strip Presents series.
And they're great reviews, and I recommend everybody should check them out.
Oh, thank you.
They're very good reviews.
We have reviewed one of them on this podcast before, of course.
We have, yes.
Les Dogs, starring Kate Bush. But just for people who haven't heard that episode, how would you describe the Comic Strip Presents? It's quite an odd strand, isn't it?
It is. I don't know if we tried to do this when we reviewed Les Dogs to try to describe what comic strip is.
Maybe we didn't.
Yeah, we're probably wise enough not to. If you want a really glib answer, it's sort of like alternative comedies Carry On series.
Yes.
Because you get basically every installment is a complete reset. It's a different genre. It's got the same cast, but they're playing different characters. You can go anywhere with it. It's like it's the great traditions of storytelling. I think I heard Stephen Gallagher talk about this recently on the Scarred for Life podcast, where he said that with Doctor Who, you as a writer, you're basically given a door to go into and a door to leave, and you might have some luggage going into that door, but in the room itself, you can do anything. As long as you reach the door on the opposite side, you can put some of the luggage down, you can pick some new luggage up, you can move stuff around, but you go out the door and it's fresh for the next person. And I think that sums up comic strip as well, really. There is no continuity here. There's nothing, you can dip in and out of them. There's no sort of link or anything like that. They are standalone comedy films.
Yes, exactly. And the connective tissue, as you've hinted, is that they are drawn from the first wave in their cast of alternative comedy in Britain. The comic strip was a cabaret night, essentially, that had everyone you associate with that generation of British comedians there. Rick Mail was there, Alexei Sale was there, Dawn French, Adrian Edmondson, Jennifer Saunders. And this was Channel 4 on its opening night, which is kind of incredible to me, said, let's give these guys a shot. Let's put these people on TV and see if it works. And it did. It's a strand that still, it hasn't for a while, but every now and then it flickers back into life in the 21st century. It's been a remarkable success.
Yeah, I'm the brainchild of Peter Richardson, who, as we were just saying, he has tried to continue to do it, but it isn't really. So I've just seen the title of this podcast. I didn't spot that. My eyes just drifted over and thought, "What's that?"
Should we get onto that when we introduce the person it's about?
We should do. We should do.
Now it's going to keep people in suspense now.
That is genius.
Oh,
yeah. Dear. But I was going to say, Richardson has single-handedly attempted to continue to keep comic strip alive. We've had some very bitty sort of comebacks in the last 20 years, I suppose, starting from is it Four Men in a Car?
Four Men in a Car, yeah.
Sort of like the revival, and then Sex Actually,
Red Top, The Hunt for
Tony Blair, another Five Go Mad as well, I think.
Yes, Five Go to Rehab.
The tantalising one that he couldn't get funding for was a recent one about Boris Johnson, wasn't it?
Oh, really? I didn't know.
Yeah, he wanted to do a Boris Johnson one, and he was going to. Some of the preoccupations that he uses here in Eat the Rich, the idea that it's all some sort of KGB plot. His opening idea was that there's this kind of almost like a rocket or a shuttle would land with like USSR markings on it, and then out would pop Boris Johnson and various old Etonians in the middle of a cricket match and just sort of start blending in with the situation. Because they're all Russian double agents.
I mean, one of the pleasures of the comic strip presents when it was a regular TV series, which it was, it had like about 5 regular seasons. It's hard to tell because they go into specials and feature films every now and then.
And they crossed the channels as well, didn't they?
Yes.
From Channel 4 to BBC. Yeah.
Yeah. But in its regular series, one of the things that I most cherish about it is they did have a place to experiment. The comic strip presents films that come back on now. I don't want to talk too much about them, largely because I haven't got onto them in my rewatch project, but they tend to be built around things like Boris Johnson, like Tony Blair, like the News International phone hacking scandal.
They're much more satirical. Yeah.
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 It's when there's a big thing going on, there's a sense that this is the reason to bring it back. Whereas, as Richardson himself said about the series, some of these aren't really meant to be funny. Some of them are pure doodling in the margins. And to be honest, at the time when the golden quest in television is to make a series that just feels like one 8-year-long single bland episode. The fact that the comic strip presents keeps on going half-cocked with ideas that could have, maybe done with a bit longer in the oven is actually quite refreshing, and I admire it.
No, I completely agree. I absolutely agree. And it's, like you say, it is very bold of Channel 4 to have given them a slot on the opening night. But then when you look at some of the opening night entertainment of Channel 4, it's probably the highlight, really.
I haven't seen any of the other stuff. What else was on it?
Well, I think immediately after comic strip, it was Walter with Ian McKellen.
Blimey.
Which is a slit your wrist time.
Yeah. Very good film, but very bleak.
I mean, I've watched it once in my life, and once is enough to watch.
Yeah.
To watch Walter. I say it's a very good film, but it's grim. It's grim viewing. So to see basically a bunch of funny people just larking about pretending to be Enid Blyton's heroes is would have been the highlight for me, definitely.
100%. Yeah. And one of the other things that is immediately striking is that these are gorgeous looking films. Five Go Mad in Dorset is a beautiful, beautiful looking film. And
he doesn't get the credit he deserves as a director, really.
Bob Spears is phenomenal.
It was Spears, wasn't it? Yeah.
It was Spears at that point. Yeah, Richardson took over later on. Eat the Rich is Richardson.
That's right. Yeah.
And all of the specials that are done now were Richardson. But for the first, I think, couple of seasons, it was all Bob Spears and Sandie Johnson.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And it was a very, very handsome looking show. Even the ones like something like Susie, which I think is pretty negligible script wise, is a beautiful cinematic, as overused as that word is in television now. It is real cinematic television.
Yeah, they are stunningly good-looking productions, and also at the same time very off the time productions. You watch things like that, you go, "That was the '80s. That is what the '80s looked like."
Yeah,
which you don't sort of see. You watch stuff now that is trying to emulate the '80s, and they always get it wrong.
Because there's no like for some reason, at some point about 10, 15 years ago, everyone just forgot how to light a shot.
Yeah.
And it's never like, I remember when Wicked came out, someone joked, what if the Hollywood lighting departments have been on strike as well and no one's noticed?
Yeah. But it's true. I mean, I was watching The Gold recently. Very good series, although the second series wasn't as good. But they opened the second series with a sort of the old early 90s BBC One logo, the globe and the one. Oh, this is brilliant. It's giving you a sense of time and place. But then the preceding hour is just the same digital glossy sheen.
Yeah.
And people in very noticeable wigs.
Yeah.
Whereas I wish they would just shoot on film.
Yeah.
So you've got that real grain that does remind you of the '80s. I think that's probably why things look so off the past now. It's because we just don't make things like that anymore. Nobody uses a proper film camera anymore. So the grain that we associate with film is very nostalgic for the time when it was highly used. So you see something like comic strip in the '80s on a street corner in Lambeth or something, and it just feels like any '80s street corner.
Yeah, I mean, one of my notes for Eat the Rich is that even a low-budget British film like this, if it's made in the '80s, you've got to get the '80s Hollywood nighttime fog machine out. Part of the look is that apparently every street in the Western world during the 1980s, as soon as that moon comes up, you got to get the fog machines, you got to get them backlit. That's just how it works.
It's true. That is true. And then you play on that sort of thing. You say like, "Oh, it's the '80s," but it becomes this. It's almost like Christmas is always a white Christmas, isn't it? Because in your head, that's what your youth was. It might have only happened like once or twice in your youth, but in your head, that's what every Christmas looked like.
Yes, yeah. So in terms of looking like a film, which I guess is the first hurdle any time a TV series has to cross over to film, this passes, in my view. This really works.
Yeah, it does. It does. I think my issue with it, and we haven't discussed yet because we went straight into this chat, into this recording. I didn't gauge the mood of what you think of this. I love comic strip. I love the comic strip presents. I'm not keen on this film. One of the issues I have with it is that it's the weird dichotomy between what Richardson, Spears, and Johnson could achieve on television, which was very cinematic looking productions.
Yeah.
That were mini movies, but there was almost like a tip in the wink to the audience that this isn't a movie, but isn't this what movies are like, you know?
Yeah.
Then when Richardson gets the chance to go on the big screen, you lose that wink. And some of the humor, once it crosses that pavement, some of the humor isn't there. It's like lost in translation. So you watch something on television and you think this is taking the mick almost out of cinema or cinema at the time. Then when it becomes a cinematic production in itself, you lose what it's lampooning in a sense.
I think that's a very astute point. I think one of the sort of risks you have with television is that you can identify a series that's cinematic, but as soon as you put it on the big screen, it's like, oh, it's cinematic compared to other TV shows. Right. Okay.
Yes, yeah.
There is a bit of that here. I think I like this more than you. I think it's consistently entertained me. I think there were some very funny moments in it. But I think the killer thing is, it may be that Richardson wanted to establish himself as a filmmaker a bit too fast. It reminded me a bit of that thing which Terry Gilliam now admits was a hideous mistake, but when he made Jabberwocky, he sent out an open letter to like all the film critics saying this is not a Monty Python movie, which went down great. Obviously, film critics love to be told how to watch a film.
Yeah.
But, you know, in retrospect, he says, I'd co-directed one film before. It was a Monty Python movie set in the Middle Ages. This is set in the Middle Ages and it has loads of Monty Python cast in it. What the hell were they meant to think, you know? Yeah. And this doesn't want to be a comic strip film in the sense that it doesn't really do anything with the regular comic strip characters, but it does keep you thinking that if they just transferred what was by that point an absolutely match fit team of central cast members over to the big screen, this would have been so much better.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. This is one of my big problems with this film, really, is the sense that I think I wrote it in my Letterboxd review, actually, from a long time ago, which I did read back and was quite... It's amazing that, I mean, I wrote this review in 2013, and the leaps and bounds we've come on in the society. I noticed because my pronouns in this review are appalling. So I've had to edit those because over 10 years ago, you weren't as attuned or aware of that sort of thing.
No.
But I did write that on TV, casting the likes of stuntmen, pub comics, former heavyweight boxers, bit part actors, drag artists, old matinee idols, and porn stars worked. They provided larger-than-life colour to show off the over-the-top nature of each film. But the casting of this rogues gallery in lead roles here is a flop. Eat the Rich needed more realistic, believable protagonists to engage with their audience as they took satirical potshots at the more bigger-name cameos playing the cartoonish, snobbish, idiotic, and crude Rich. And then I go on to basically just say how much I don't like Lana Pillay. I basically just say that, I mean, that sounds awful. I didn't read that. I just put, in casting Lana Pillay in the lead role, the film fails. Pillay was a transsexual entertainer who Peter Richardson would often employ, and she was an acquired taste, to say the least.
Yeah, I've got up to the bit in the Comic Strip Presents TV series where Lana P makes a few cameo appearances, but hasn't really done a lead. As a support, as a one-scene cameo, she is reliably good, I think. There are some very funny moments in Susie and Gino Full Story in Pix that centre around her.
Yeah.
This is a three-stranded story, really. And I guess part of the choice made with the cast is to give each strand to someone who's certainly familiar from Comic Strip Present stories, but who is usually playing second fiddle to, Mail or Richardson or, any of the other regular cast.
I'd love to know what... Sorry, go on.
You've got Lana P in one, you've got Ronald Allen in another, and the third one is Nosha Powell.
Yeah.
And the name I have given to this room as we record, listeners, is Nosha I Hardly Know Of.
This is why I laughed before, because I just spotted it. Genius. But I'd love to know what Richardson's logic was to do this, because I watched it again, and I just think you've got Lana P's character, and you've got Ron Tarr, who my generation will remember as Big Ron in EastEnders. A sort of occasional walk-on who ran one of the stalls and wore a big sheepskin jerkin. Also, people who Doctor Who fans will remember him for Dimensions in Time, where he saves John Pertwee at one point, I think. The choice was vote for Mandy to save them or Big Ron.
No one ever gets upset about that piece of missing footage, isn't it? It's the one thing that I don't think even Ian Levine has been through the archives looking for.
Perhaps we'll have a Doctor Who the collection, The World Initiators, at one point. We'll have everything everything that was sort of Search Out Science, Curse of Fatal Death, and of course Dimensions in Time. Yeah, but you've got Lana P and Ron Tarr, and I watched it. I thought this would be so much better if they got Ade Edmondson or Rick Mayall and Robbie Coltrane.
Yeah. I mean, Ade Edmondson is like someone who I've always had a great deal of time for, going back to my childhood. But looking at the very early Comic Strip Presents episodes, looking at stuff like Beat Generation, obviously Bad News, it's just incredible how often he and Jennifer Saunders are the standouts. With some of the other ones, you can tell that they're kind of modulating their performances to work on TV. Like for Rick Mayall's great, obviously, but there's a couple of episodes where his style of comedy at that point was so based around live performance and was so based around having an audience that it's a bit of time before he figures out how to make it work on TV. But Edmondson and Saunders are just flawless from the off. They're phenomenally good, which makes it such a pain in the ass when, for instance, Nigel Planer, he has one line and then gets shot.
Yeah. And I mean, Nigel Planer is the actor who had probably the most experience out of comic strip.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. That's like Jennifer and Ade are surprising standouts right from the bat, really. Rick's a force of energy, struggling to decipher how to channel that energy. Which he gets fairly quickly, but in the initial
something like War, it's like quite odd. It's quite ill-fitting.
Those initial things that are difficult. And then you've got Nigel, who has the most sort of experience, who just is consistently good and reliable. So to just waste a talent like that is strange.
It's very odd, although I will have to say that some of the casting that they do in place of the regulars is really successful. And I can imagine that even if they did this story for television, Ronald Allen would still be cast in this role.
Oh yeah, definitely, because Ronald Allen was very often cast in that kind of role, really, wasn't he? It's the one with what's the one called with Jennifer Saunders plays an American. She goes to it might be called Cambridge. I can't remember now.
There is. I think it's I haven't got up to that one yet. I've mostly seen, in fact, I think exclusively seen Alan as Uncle Quentin in the two.
Uncle Quentin. Of course, a raging homosexual.
He's so great.
He's just brilliant, isn't he? But
genuinely sinister in the second one.
Yeah,
which is extraordinary considering how silly it is.
You look at him and you think, this is where Richard was really good with people. But he was very good at sort of giving people another chance, almost, in a way. Because, I mean, Ronald Allen was sort of like slaving away at the grindstone of Crossroads.
Yeah. Very odd.
Which is very... And Sue Lloyd, who briefly appears in this, his wife, was at Crossroads as well. And then you've got people like Darren Nesbitt, who... basically shat the bed with his own career when he was arrested for beating his wife up in the early to mid 70s. I think that's why he just disappeared. I want to be careful because I'm not entirely sure what happened, but the story I read was that he whipped her with his belt.
Yeah, something that I was completely unfamiliar with.
So this is why he was such a big sort of presence in the 60s and looked like he was going to be a really big thing. I mean, he's in Where Eagles Dare. Playing the SS officer. And then his career in the early 70s just goes, and it's because of that scandal.
Yeah, it really does. He was arrested on assault occasioning actual bodily harm in October 1972. And if this doesn't tell you that it was the 70s, nothing else will. He was fined 250 quid.
Yeah.
Crazy,
isn't it?
It is absolutely wild, you're right.
But I mean, Richardson gave him another chance, and he appears in an awful lot of comic strip productions. But it speaks of Richardson's curious interest in that sort of 70s smoothie or 60s smoothie.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's kind of, there's always an element in comedy where you go back and find these people whose careers have faded or who were on a naff soap opera, and you pull them out for the fun of it. But I think one of the sort of strong points of Richardson's work is that these performances generally fire, even if you have no idea why they had this kind of image. I don't think Ronald Allen's performances are dependent on you sort of laughing because he was on Crossroads, because he's phenomenally good.
That's true. Ronald Allen he subverts the image he's got, really. We know this is a man with a great voice and matinee idol looks, even though he's aging matinee idol looks. We know that he's a very smooth person, but the roles that he plays either play up to that smoothness or subvert some of it, Whereas with Darren Nesbitt, it's just, he doesn't really play up to those things. He sort of plays along with the rest of the whatever role he's been given in these films. I mean, he plays Galtieri in one. South Atlantic Raiders, he plays Galtieri. He's some MP in GLC as well. So he sort of throws himself in the comic. I mean, his death scene in this is a prime example of just throwing yourself into the comic styling of the production.
Yes.
So it works in some respects, it doesn't in others. Why Richardson sought to employ Fiona Richmond, who obviously they knew from the Raymond Review bar, is beyond me, because she can't act for fucking toffee.
Yeah, Fiona Richmond came into the series in the second of the famous 5 spoofs, but it's quite odd that, because she's not playing the sort of sex kitten role that you might expect. That role went to the future Arthur Moore Hyder, which I think is great and very eccentric casting, but not that we'd have known that back then. Yeah, Richmond is in this here. I guess you could talk about her having like comedy film experience, although none of the comedy films she was in were funny.
No.
Yeah,
we use that term loosely, don't we? Yeah,
we really do. Yeah. Listeners, if you've never subjected yourself to a 70s British sex comedy, then good on you. Yeah, keep doing that. Good work there.
Yeah, well done. Keep it up. But yeah, and again, that's another weird choice for her. She's sort of like the
she's one of Alex, the Lana P character's fellow revolutionaries for a lot of it.
Yeah, but she's like a tragic heroine, isn't she?
Yeah.
In this, and it means there's a lot of emotional heft that's put on her shoulders. That again, it's hard to do. It's hard for it. It would have been hard for any actor to do. So even in the comic strip troupe to do.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I could just about imagine Jennifer Saunders play this, but it's hard to.
Yeah.
It's hard to ask an actor in a comedy film to sell genuine emotion.
And the other side of that is that there has to be a framework set up that genuine emotion can be introduced and mean something, which is, you know, it's not only a failure of acting, it's quite a significant failure of Pete Richardson and his writing partner Peter Richardson's script, that towards the end you are expected to invest quite a lot in both her and in Nosha Powell's character, which is like it's not really been earned by any of the rest of the movie.
Not at all. Should we talk about Nosha? I hardly know her.
I think we have to. Yeah.
Nosha again was another intriguing sort of colourful character that would sort of appear in comic strip films, didn't he? But he was a former heavyweight boxer and stuntman and bit part actor, and he's playing the Home Secretary in this, isn't he?
I mean, it's ridiculous. Obviously, watching it now, he would be far too left wing to get in the current cabinet.
I was watching. I was thinking, this in a way, this kind of predicts what your average reform voter would like to see in government, really, isn't it? And it's like, it's not even Lee Anderson, really, is it?
Well, he is the Home Secretary, so you have to assume that he's a parody of Norman Tebbit here, who was always treated, I think, slightly ridiculously, in my opinion, as this kind of brawling far-right street thug, when really he looks like he'd snap in two if you sneezed on him. But
it's because. And this is another thing that annoys me when people try to replicate the 80s. You know, there wasn't many people who had a bald head and quite close cropped hair left. So he stood out. So he got the name the Chingford Skinhead.
Yes.
Whereas now, I mean, I watched the Iranian embassy siege film this week because I've just finished reading Ben McIntyre's book, The Siege. I recommend Ben McIntyre's book, The Siege. Don't recommend the Iranian embassy siege film called 6 Days, which stars Mark Strong as one of the police negotiators. And Mark Strong, of course, he wears wigs in some films, but he doesn't in this film, even though the character he plays has a full head of hair. So quite why he's walking around like Kojak on like 80s suits, I don't know. Because that just wasn't a fashion choice back then. You know, people had hair or people had comb overs.
Yeah.
Nobody sort of went, oh, sod it, let's take it all off, you know.
Yes, very much so. I've often thought one of the real nightmares of casting these things is just finding actors who don't have tattoos, because it's like my
Yeah,
granddad had tattoos, to be fair, but he was a working class lad who fixed electrical substations for a living. That was very much the high end of what your career could be back then if you had tattoos.
yeah, that's true. Yeah. It's there was something I watched again, something I watched recently again that was supposed to be set in the 80s, and the guy takes his shirt off and he's got all these what I call Harry Styles tattoos. In the sense they're not just a sleeve or anything, it's just like bits just plastered all over, you know, in various places. And you think nobody in like 1982 would have done that. Not even
No.
sailors would. I mean, my granddad was a sailor, so he had the tattoos like 3 on his arm.
Yeah.
But the idea of having like a boat on there and then a something else here and then something else there, it just didn't happen.
It's like you say Harry Styles. I was about it. A friend of mine saw Ed Sheeran's tattoos once and said, "I feel like if I solve them all, I'm going to find a golden hair."
It might be Ed Sheeran I'm thinking of actually when it comes to tattoos. I'm not sure, but yeah, they're just so fucking random, aren't they? And it just takes you out of what you're investing in, because you go, well, that's not how people were at the time.
And it's funny this because there's a whole squadron of people who like every time a film or a TV show has an Asian character in a scene set in 1996, they're all like, I think that was before they were invented. But these like absolutely blatant anachronisms
Get a
just
pass,
go
yeah,
uncommented on.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Get an
Yeah.
absolute free pass because white, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's it. You can't sort of mine bad tattoos and bald heads for culture war points.
No. How do we get onto bald heads? Oh yeah, Norman
The
Tebbit.
Iranian embassy siege.
Yeah, so yeah,
Yeah.
that's a very astute point that it clearly is sort of playing up to the tabloidese image of Norman Tebbit as Home Secretary. So we'll go one further in this broad brushstroke satire and cast an absolute East End Cockney brawler as the Home Secretary.
And it's one of those things where this is where I can understand being split about the film, because you think it is funny and Powell is funny in it and he gets lots of funny lines, but that's also kind of the problem, you know, as a satire of a then sitting hard right government by a left wing comedy team. You do sort of you spend a lot of time quite liking Powell. You know, he slags off foreign dignitaries at boring meetings. He gets Fiona Richmond up the duff. You know, none of this feels like it's really undercutting a kind of reactionary machismo. It feels like it's actually indulging it quite a bit.
Yeah, it's indulging and celebrating, and you know that people. I don't want to be really stereotypical, but you know that Sun readers probably loved this film because fucking yeah, you know.
Oh, imagine if we had Nosher in number 10. Yeah, it's very
exactly.
much
They don't see the satire of it. They don't see Jools Holland, first of the pop stars we've mentioned for Pop Screen here. You
just
don't see
40
him
minutes in.
Jools Holland playing a typical Sun reporter. They probably don't. They don't see that is a piss take.
Yeah, it reminded me a bit of. Have you ever seen Big Dave, the thing that Grant Morrison and Mark Miller did for 2000 AD when they were both very young?
Don't think so. No.
It was like a parody of the same kind of 80s Sun Reader attitude, where Big Dave was a football hooligan who'd been sent on like these ridiculous secret government missions when they found out that, say, Saddam Hussein had a gun that could turn all our soldiers gay and things like this. And it is pretty funny, but part of you thinks this is kind of funny because that kind of 80s tabloid language is funny. If you can disconnect from the horrors that it was used to promote and the attitudes it was used to push, it is very funny. And I think you're onto a bit of a losing cause trying to satirize that.
Yeah. It's commendable that people try, you know. I mean, it speaks of where we were in comedy at the time, that, you know, you could sort of play about in these margins, but there was always the risk, which we probably should have learnt by then, really, from like something like Till Death Us Do Part. There's always the risk that people just don't get the joke. They don't get that you're laughing at these people.
Or that you can't really satirize them by just exaggerating the supporters like, you know, that's a bit of a problem, which, you know, goes on to be a problem in satire forever. And it would be interesting to see if Richardson's unmade Boris Johnson film could get past that, because a lot of satire of Boris Johnson was just, oh, his hair's so messy and he's so posh and he's so clumsy, and it's like,
this is exactly what he uses to get away with naked corruption.
Yeah, that's true. You basically just add into the myth, really, aren't you, rather than remove.
You end up running PR for them. Yeah,
that's true.
But we have touched on the pop star cameos, and we should probably do a bit of that, considering that's what the podcast's about.
That's what we're here for. Well, there's one that really isn't a cameo. It's virtually, would we say, second lead?
It's certainly in one of the plot lines. I think you could make a very good case that Lemmy is the second lead of the Ronald Allen one. Ronald Allen and Lemmy is just an inherently funny double act, isn't
what
it?
A partnership. This absolute smooth man and Lemmy promoted.
It's beautiful. Yeah. Like, I don't know if you would cast him in any role where he's not essentially playing himself, but I do think he works in this. I think he's funny. I think he times the jokes well. You know, he bounces off Ronald Allen really well. I think, you know, as a performance, it works.
It does. It does. It's a really interesting. I mean, he is playing himself, and he's not a great actor, but it works for what's required in this, really. And in a film that is basically, it comes around pretty soon that you realise that a lot of what this film is hoping for you to do is go, oh, look, it's...
yeah.
And for an oh, look, it's moment,
it
works superbly, and it keeps working each time he pops up. And then when he gets to sing a song, it works again and again, you know. Whereas the other cameos are real, just genuine, oh, look, it's moments, and then they're either killed off, dragged off, or never seen again.
Yeah, I mean, the one who's closest to what Lemmy's doing in terms of where they are in the plot is also one of the ones which, you know, you can't really call it an acting performance, but it's a very shrewd piece of stunt casting, which is that the revolutionary cell that Alan leads and Lemmy is part of also includes Shane MacGowan.
Shane MacGowan, yeah. Not the only time we've spoke about gun-toting Shane MacGowan on this podcast.
Not at all. You know what? One of the things that's tangential to the comic strip that always intrigues me is that Alex Cox hates the comic strip. And he's he slagged him off in interviews and everything. And I always wonder whether there's this sense of, oh, they're on my turf.
Yeah, because that's really interesting. Because I know there's a person I know on Letterboxd who I think on his review about Eat the Rich says that he will very often confuse or believe that Alex Cox and Peter Richardson are basically in the same sandpit, or they're virtually interchangeable. And that's true. Yeah, I mean, you look at Straight to Hell, which we've discussed previously, you know, gun-toting Shane MacGowan.
Yeah.
Its brother is Fistful of Traveller's Checks, really, isn't it?
100%. Yeah. I wonder whether one of the things is that when I read the interview in which he said this, he was talking about an unmade film project he had called The Battle of Torremolinos. And as he described it, I kept thinking, this is very much like Fun Seekers. I wonder if that's what pissed him off, maybe.
Yeah. And of course, they both go to the same well a lot as well, because you've got people like Kathy Burke who will pop up. And there's a lot of that kind of Joan Littlewood's is it E17 school of drama, or there's that kind of so you've got like Michelle Winstanley and people like that. Sarah Silverman, Sarah Sugarman, I should say.
Sarah Sugarman. Yeah.
There's that kind of. These people are they're both.
There's a shared talent pool.
Yeah, that they're interested in, absolutely. So I guess there is that. There must be that sense of you're on my turf here.
I think it must have been annoying that as Cox was slowly getting shut out of the British industry, and then after Walker getting shut out of the American industry, this is the hot thing. I can. It is slightly petty, but I can sort of understand why it bothered him.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, like you say, it's silly because, as we say, I mean, you the shared talent pool, they're gonna, they're talented enough to get work anywhere. So I mean, you can't really be proprietorial over certain people or even certain ideas, because what else are you going to do under Thatcher in the 80s other than satirise Thatcher in the 80s? Really?
Yes. Them both being into spaghetti westerns is a bit maybe more of an uncanny coincidence.
Yeah. But that's interesting, because it's a shame as well, because they're both very, very good, and I have a lot of time for both of them.
Same, yeah.
But it's a shame. But we've got Shane MacGowan. There's also Debbie Linden, isn't it? Another tragic glamour girl.
That's
she's the one she's the blonde that Lemmy snogs before they go on the raid. I think she committed suicide not long after, I think.
Right.
She was a sort of similar to Moheda. I can't think what Moheda's name was. Candy something, wasn't it? Before?
Candy Davis, I think, before she started writing. Yeah.
They're from a similar sort of background in the sense. Was it called Electric Blue?
That's it. With Fiona Richmond was often in as well. Yeah.
So again, you're in the similar sort of talent pool, but and another tragedy. So they form part of the revolutionary cell that gives the film its Iranian embassy siege moment.
It does, yeah.
The great thing. I mean, I've been quite by coincidence reading that book this past week. It does mention that after the embassy siege, Thatcher and the SAS were inexplicably linked forevermore. And if Thatcher did anything that was supposedly hardline, tabloid cartoonists would depict her in SAS gear, abseiling down buildings, abseiling down Big Ben or something like that. This film really blurs those lines by giving you Nosha Powell single-handedly storming an embassy to take out the terrorist cell, which is kind of what those tabloid cartoons would eventually depict, really.
It is very prescient on tabloid language, like when Jools Holland files his story about Alex's gun rampage at the Dole office. The headline is just "Bastards!" And I remember the Sun and the Star used to use that during the War on Terror, like anytime there's a large-scale terrorist attack, as if they were sincerely expecting like Ayman al-Zahawi to look up in shock and go, "Guys, you're not going to believe this. They've called us bastards. Let's jack it in. We're never going to get the caliphate now."
I mean, we've got to say as well. I mean, it is so 80s, this film, and it is so it is so part of that tabloid culture. And there's probably people listening to this or watching this who probably don't remember what those tabloids were like, and it's like this. I remember even later, like the mid sort of 90s, where I suppose he got a fresh wave of that because of new laddism as well. But I remember, when you're about 16 or something like that, and you think, what you start thinking about buying a newspaper for yourself. And occasionally I would pick up the Daily Star, because you don't go far from, we were a mirror reading family. You don't go far down the line on that shelf, really. I'm not going to suddenly pick up I did eventually, but I'm not going to suddenly pick up the Guardian. So I went down the next one thinking, well, my dad will have the Mirror in the house, but if I get the Star, that's something else that, and you could see what other options there are. And I remember picking up the Star on holiday once in Blackpool. And it was a Saturday, and you go to the back pages, you get to the sports pages, and there literally was a football column called "A Bird with Big Tits Writes." And you see this tiny little bio line picture of a blonde girl with massive tits, and sort of like a pen going, and then this weird sort of like, couple of inches comment on that day's football game, what you might win, usually followed by some terrible joke at the end, and you think, well, clearly they've just found a model.
But this was one of the less commented on things about Page 3. I always thought, in all of the debates about that leading up to it's being pulled from the Sun, how often the glamour models there had political views that were strangely simpatical with the Sun's editorial line.
Sean Locke used to do a brilliant thing about that, didn't he? Where he would say, like, "Oh, I turned to page 3, see what Tracy from Chingford, age 22, has got to say about the Axis of Evil this week."
But it is sort of emblematic of how underneath the sort of cuddly, cartoony, sort of silly headlines and stories about Freddie Starr eating hamsters and shit like that, these papers were and are like incredibly ideological and devoted to pushing propaganda in even the dumbest corners.
Fiercely ideological. I mean, in this film's really interesting as well, because it sort of points to the hypocrisy of it, because you have Nosha Powell having an affair with Fiona Richmond behind his wife's back. His wife has never been able to give him a child. Fiona Richmond does get pregnant with this. Fiona Richmond's call girl does get pregnant with this child. Nosha reveals it to the press, and the press are like, "Yeah, who's the mum, Nosha?" Now in reality, people like Cecil Parkinson lost their jobs in Thatcher's government because of having an extramarital affair that brought about a child. But because it's like man of the people, Nosha Powell, we're all for it,
And that's again, massively predictive, because I was just thinking the other day about how odd it was that Private Eye was the only outlet that picked up that thing when John Whittingdale was culture secretary, and his expenses when he went out to Amsterdam for some, suddenly. When he went out to Amsterdam, the expenses went up by hundreds of pounds, and you would think, well, the implication alone of that would be a tabloid's dream story. If it was anyone else other than the person who they hoped would be the bagman who would deliver the head of the BBC to them.
Yeah.
But they all like went incredibly pious and said, look, it's his business, it's his personal life. It's our money, but it's his personal life.
Yeah, that's true. And I think it speaks of the way that the sort of evolution or devolution of that, in the sense that you say Parkinson had to leave the cabinet and was probably vilified by the press as a result. You get this film here, which is like glorifying that, and then you're only a couple of years away from David Mellor, and how wild that whole thing was. You know, the Chelsea football kit and whatever. And okay, he did lose his job and that, but there was a sense from a lot of those tabloid editorials of nice one, you know, that good for you, or good for you. You've got a face like a bag of spanners, but you can pull somebody. That idea, wouldn't we all do it if?
Yeah. It goes through those stages, doesn't it? Where like before the perfume warfare, it's unspeakable. After the perfume warfare, you've got a couple of decades when it's a serious scandal, and then by the major years, for all like the quote unquote sleaze and the affairs did a big part in making John Major's government untenable, there is creeping in, there is a sense that this is actually very funny. You know, it's not a security risk anymore. It's not something where we should be asking serious questions about what sort of people represent us. You just look for the detail, like the Chelsea football kit or the satsuma in the mouth, that makes the story sort of grimly funny and memorable.
There's a sense that there's a lot of journalists going, "You dirty bastard." That'll sell millions, you dirty bastard. And then you get the epitome of it, or the nada of it, is Boris Johnson.
Yeah, that's where it delivers.
Tell you how many children he has.
Yeah.
And yet he is the fucking hero of the tabloids.
A guy who spent, was it like 100 million he gave to that, not 100 million, 100 grand he gave to that mad American woman he was sleeping with on the pretext that she was a digital guru.
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
And it's just like nothing happens.
Yeah.
And there is a sense of, again, it is, you could imagine, not, remove the proudly Cockney working class stuff out of this equation. You could put Boris Johnson in this film, and they would still, the circus around him would still be enthralled and encouraged and amused by what he does.
Yeah, I mean, when he was Prime Minister, he was taking Carrie What's-Her-Face to events with the Queen. Not because she was his wife, he was busy divorcing her, but because she was the current favoured mistress.
Yeah.
And you do think, even as someone who thinks that a lot of these stories about politicians' sex lives are just, titillation and we shouldn't get too hung up on them. But I did see that and think, God, things have changed a hell of a lot since over the last 3 or 4 decades. Things are very different now.
Yeah. And I often think the reason why they get so angry with people like Keir Starmer and whatever is he's just so fucking boring.
Yeah.
It boils down to they're not ideologically. I don't even think they're that ideologically predisposed to him. I just think they're just so fucking. They've got nothing
to happen. He would have to have an ideology, which
exactly. We'd have to have some sort of principle. But I mean, he is virtually doing exactly the same thing the Tories do, but he hasn't got that common touch they want. I'm not that. Listen, not that Boris Johnson had a common touch.
Yeah.
The tabloid people invented that idea that he had a common touch, and various idiots, same as they're doing now with Nigel Farage, various idiots just believe it because the newspapers say this, because they might picture him holding a pasty in the air, even though we call it a pasty, which really pissed me off about Boris Johnson. And people still go, yeah, man of the people. Or Farage has got a pint in his hand and a fag in his hand, For all Keir Starmer does with a football, people just don't give a shit because he's just a drip.
And that goes back, doesn't it, to that point about tabloid language. I feel ever since the 90s, we've been on this slow progression where working class has gone from being an actual economic state to being an aesthetic. And part of that aesthetic is, do you speak tabloid? Johnson obviously does, because that's the world he comes from, the world of British journalism. Farage can do it. Keir Starmer, you could ask him to give a press statement on a World War II bomber found on the moon, and his first sentence would begin with, "Let me be straight with you."
Yeah. Look. Look. There's a very couple of situations. I want to find this. Oh, fucking hell. But yeah, I mean, even Farage can. But if you give him enough airtime, he always shoots himself in the foot because he's such a poisonous, fragile, egoed individual that
he always lapses into a sort of outraged clucking, doesn't he? Whenever
he
someone
does,
asks him a tough question,
yeah, and then if it doesn't go his way, he will just insult everybody in the room, and then you just think, how is this? How does he still get a fan base? Because he will literally just say to your face, "You're fucking scum." And people still will go, "Yeah."
It's like, give it to me, Nigel.
But again, I suppose it's because the media platform him, so they will focus more on him saying, "Isn't this terrible? People coming over on boats," more than the bit where the mask slips and he calls people who have only vaguely disagreed with him. So it's like throwing shit at a wall, isn't it? It's always going to be, because you've got a compliant media, they're going to stick. The thing that sticks is going to be the soundbite that they want, not the truth that he will eventually utter.
I think in the interest of balance, we do have to do an analysis of the political positions and linguistic skills of Kemi Badenoch. That was quick.
Oh dear.
Just some thoughts before we wrap up about some of the other cameos in here. Because there are a ton. I think one of them is kind of telling as to why the film is like this, because there's a character I cannot remember at all, but who's apparently called Derek, who's played by Miles Copeland.
I didn't see him either.
No, but he was quite a big power player, particularly in the American record industry at that point. He ran IRS Records, which REM started off on. And you have to think that quite a lot of the pop star cameos here are down to him.
Could be, yeah. We see Bill Wyman.
We see Bill Wyman get killed, not for the reason he should be, but he does get killed.
Good old Je suis un pedo. We see Sandie Shaw.
Yeah, Sandie Shaw in that lovely kind of 80s don't give a fuck phase of her career, which is probably the first major singing star to have a don't give a fuck phase in her career, where it's just like, oh yeah, I'm obviously past my past the era when I was a reliable regular chart star. I'm just going to do stuff that amuses me now.
I always find it really weird that she was probably only about 40 there.
Yeah, because she was a veteran. She had been around so long.
It's just, man, I think somebody said to me once when she started doing working with the Smiths and doing the Smiths covers, when she was about 36 or something like that, and you think, fucking hell, that's a young woman.
Yeah, it's one of the. I guess it's like a mixture of increasing life expectancy and the fact that no young people have any money anymore, but people just do not break through as young as they used to. Every time you read about stardom in the mid-20th century, it is just a case of being astonished at how young everyone was back then.
Yeah, that's true. The biggest one, of course, is we have Paul McCartney.
Paul McCartney, yeah, in the epitome of one of the "oh look it's him" appearances. Yeah.
And even if you didn't guess it was Paul McCartney, he gets one line, "I'm with the group," as he's being dragged away.
I mean, there's some things in here where it's really interesting what stage these people were at in their careers. That we've mentioned with Sandie Shaw, Shane MacGowan playing a revolutionary hits harder because it was like 1 year before Streets of Sorrow, Birmingham 6 was banned from being played on radio. But Paul McCartney is especially interesting because it's like 1 year after Give My Regards to Broad Street, and you think, well done you for going in front of a camera again. That can't be easy.
I test some balls.
Yeah.
That's true. And it's again, it's interesting. It's like Shane MacGowan plays like, a revolutionary, and then you've got these people who are playing the rich, which is absolutely right, because it is that point in time, isn't it? I don't know if. Well, no, probably Shane MacGowan would still play a revolutionary 10 years later because it is punk, isn't it? But nobody's going to say that he's not rich at that point, or he should be rich at that point. But was there any other? It's a lot of a blink and you'll miss type film, this, isn't it?
There's a ton of them, yeah. The guy who accompanies Sandie Shaw to the restaurant is Hugh Cornwell.
Hugh Cornwell, yes.
So there's another one. The one that intrigued me the most, politically speaking, is not a pop star, but there's an aristocrat who is very snobby towards someone for being the wife of a mere cabinet member, who I'm pretty sure is Koo Stark.
Yes, Koo Stark, yes, Prince Andrew's.
Remember when that was the most embarrassing thing we knew about Prince Andrew's private life? That he'd dated a woman who was in some Bliff films.
I mean, there's some names here that I'm just going through. There's some names that jump out, but I'm not quite sure why they jump out. So they're vaguely familiar names, but I'm not entirely sure. One, of course, is Fran Fullenwider playing the Queen.
Oh, no, don't know that one.
She is. She's an interesting sort of cult character, Fran. She's a very Rubenesque woman, shall we say? Who she appears in the Rocky Horror Picture Show. She's also in Monster Club. She dances with Vincent Price in Monster Club at the end. But for some reason, she's got some like special guest appearance by Fran Fullenwider. And she's literally just all she's doing is dancing with Vincent Price. But she did, because of a frame, shall we say, she became quite popular in Italy and did a few Italian movies. So she's quite an interesting character. And she pops up as the Queen in this, which is just absurd.
There's another Rocky Horror link. Now you've mentioned that, which is the visiting American film director, John Steinbeck or John Steinbeck, depending on whether you're seeing it pronounced or said, is played by Christopher Malcolm, who originated the role of Brad in the original stage version of Rocky Horror.
That's right, yeah. And again, he was another comic strip alumni, wasn't he?
Which ones was he in?
He's in Traveller's Checks. He's the cafe owner.
Oh, right.
He specialises in food. Sorry, I have to say that. You have to say that. I'm sorry. If ever I'm with somebody, say, "Oh, look, there's a cafe over there," I'll just go, "They specialise in food." And that is what growing up watching Aid Edmondson does to you, really, doesn't it?
It really does. Yeah.
But yeah, he's the guy who just can't get over the fact that like 3 people have come into his cafe or bar in like the Andalusian desert.
Yes. Oh man. Yeah, it's strange. I think anyone who has watched a fair bit of the comic strip presents will be able to pick out ones that you wish had been made as their first movie other than this. But I still enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like it. I think unlike what he did on television, it doesn't feel a whole for me. It feels like a lot of sketches strung together, which you would expect from television more than you would expect from cinema, which is a shame. But
There's
there
some
are
comic strip presents episodes that are like that, but they get away with that because they're like 25 minutes long.
Yeah. But it's still got some very good moments. You know, the bloodbath at the Dole office, shooting Miranda Richardson.
That's one of the cameos from the regulars that really works. It's like she's only in it for a bit, but man, she has some fun with that role.
Fucking love Miranda Richardson.
Same.
And I will still say that probably the most realistic performance of Elizabeth I ever.
100%. Yeah.
I mean, you can keep your
Glenda Jacksons and your Helen Mirren.
Sharon, and you can keep all those. I imagine if you were to manage to somehow beam Blackadder 2 to somebody from the Tudor court, they'll go, no, that's
nailed
pretty
it.
Realistic, yeah. But does it work as a film? Not necessarily. Does it speak as a film of its time? Absolutely, because
100%.
and also still not just speaking of its time because it is a very 80s film, but has a legacy because sadly we're still in this situation where the rich get richer and the poor get shat on. So, you know, the fact that there is a film out there called Eat the Rich at a time when you hear that more and more, even though it's a prescribed statement, you hear it more and more, and that sentiment is more in the mainstream now than probably ever before, is remarkable, really.
Yeah, I would give it a watch, listeners. Before watching it puts you on a terrorist watch list.
And we'll all be on it.
Yes, yeah.
They can't arrest us all, so I stand with Palestine Action. Arrest me.
Yeah. I wonder what will be. What can I say?
Your disclaimer isn't saying it, people.
Yes, but if you enjoyed this episode and you're still at liberty after listening to it, then you can donate to our Patreon at www.patreon.com/The Geek Show, where you'll get a monthly bonus episode of this very podcast for a start, our end of month podcast last night, and regular reviews of The X-Files, The Twilight Zone, and more. Mark, just remind people where they can find you online if they're from Special Branch.
You can find me on letterboxd.com. I'm there under Mark Cunliffe. You can find me on The Geek Show, where I regularly write. That's the places you find me online.
Yeah. I'm on Letterboxd as well. Just search for Graham Williamson. I'm regularly writing for thegeekshow.co.uk, and I have an Instagram that I occasionally remember to update at Graham W Film.
I never advertise my Instagram because I probably get banned. So
yeah, that is true. Yeah.
Well, if anybody wants to look, it's on my link tree on Letterboxd. So
they can arrest us, but don't take our Instagram away. But yes, we'll be back in a couple of weeks' time. But until then, I've been Graham.
And I've been arrested.